I grew up in what I felt like was a progressive society. In school, we had broken through the idea of strict gender roles. We were taught that men and women could have any career that they wanted. On the playground, boys and girls played together. I am a trans man, but as a young girl, I never felt there was anything a girl couldn't do that a boy could. Today, I have noticed a major shift in the lessons being taught to kids. Through the use of models such as the genderbread person, the gender unicorn, and the gender elephant, kids are being taught that gender identity, gender expression, and biological sex are spectrums, with many different points on them and labels within them. These models aim to account for and include a wide range of identities. The idea of a spectrum sounds much more freeing and flexible, but is it? To create these spectrums, we first have to accept stereotypes about gender. The first spectrum of gender identity asks how you, in your head, define your gender based on how much you align or don't align with what you understand to be the options for that gender. But how are children to understand those options? Far from freeing, this model asks us to see the options that are available within our gender as traits that are fixed, immutable, and stereotypical. If we don't identify with those traits, then we must be a different gender. The second spectrum of gender expression asks about the ways you present gender through your actions, dress, and demeanor, and how those presentations are interpreted based on gender norms. But why are gender norms something we should see as fixed or care about at all? Why can't each of us just be who we are? And teaching that biological sex is a spectrum entirely separate from a person's gender identity or gender expression is factually, empirically untrue. Biological facts about us help to form our identities, both psychologically and socially. And it is a fact that there are only two possible sexes in all mammalian life, males and females, defined by our reproductive systems. Intersex people, an extraordinarily rare condition affecting only 0.0018% of live births, has some elements of both sexes, but are still not on a spectrum. Teaching us to understand ourselves in terms of stereotypes forces us to live in the consequences of the expectations that they create. We could instead work to free ourselves from stereotypes, but enforcing them upon impressionable children dooms us to never achieving that goal. And shutting our ears to the scientific truth of biological sex, or any other truths for that matter, prevents us from using the scientific method as the tool that it is to build a better and happier world. Now, when a child exhibits behaviors or preferences that don't match up with the stereotypes of their biological sex, they are often told it's a sign that they're transgender. I often hear from parents who believe that because their daughter didn't like wearing dresses or their son preferred Barbies to G.I. Joes, that this means they are trans. This confuses children who are still developing their self-understanding and leads some to consider serious and irreversible medical interventions that are very likely to be unnecessary. I transitioned to be a man because I did not fit the stereotype of what it means to be a woman. I was once called a dyke and had a bottle thrown at my head by a passing car. I transitioned because I thought life would be easier for me to live as a man than as a masculine woman. And I was right, because our society's adherence to rigid gender stereotypes made living my life as I was unbearable. I wish the message that we should be free to be who we are had been allowed to win over society. If it had, I might not have felt the need to make the medically risky choice to transition. The pro-human answer to the question of gender is to accept people however they are, to not force people into an ever more expansive list of constricting labels, to help people feel comfortable in the bodies they were born with, have compassion for all who are struggling, and understand that transition is a choice adults can make for themselves, but can come with severe medical consequences. To understand that gender stereotypes are crude averages at best and sexist falsehoods at worst, and not something to be reinforced and upheld. To accept the truth of science and biology without perceiving it as limiting, but instead understanding it as the basis upon which we can find freedom to be our truest and unique selves. Join me in promoting a pro-human and compassionate understanding of gender at fairforall.org.